Good morning and welcome to Unusual Activity powered by FinancialJuice.com with George Avedon and Milton Marmonides. Welcome to the show this morning, the 11th of December 2014. As always, lots happening in the markets this morning. Futures are positive by 8.25 at 2034. 2035.5. Again, just had a small tick up there. Um, really, as was last few mornings, all eyes on oil, West Texas Intermediate crude at $60.16, lower by 77 cents. Gold this morning lower by $11.80 at $1,217.30. We have the DXY, the dollar index, is higher this morning. We've been saying several days now that this does have impact on both oil and gold prices. So the dollar index versus 10 other currencies currently at 88.581, higher by 0.304. The euro at 1.2408, lower by 0.0041. We have the 10-year at 2.178. 5-year at 1.590, and the 30-year Treasury at 2.838. We've been discussing how the 30-year has really yield has slipped below the 3.00 mark and has stayed there for a few days now. But again, we'll continue to monitor this throughout our show, and we'll dive into the technicals in a bit. So let's take a look at yesterday's trading day. We had a risk-off trade in pre-market and opening rotation, maintained a negative sentiment for the rest of the trading day, really finished two handles above the low of the day. So it was a rather negative sentiment day for the entire day. S&P 500 finished lower by 1.63% at 2026.15. Dow Jones Industrial Average finished lower as well, 1.51% at 17,533.15. NASDAQ lower by 1.73% at 4684.03. So a couple of dynamics that have been happening today, and this is one of these timeless type events where sentiment, with respect to OPEC and oil, certainly, global geopolitical crises will always be present in the world, and again, how does the market internalize particular news? So we've seen, for example, with the Russia-Ukraine, whatever news comes out of Russia and military maneuvers really does not impact markets too much anymore unless something cataclysmic happens. But again, sentiment could change. But again, what you see is, compared to several months ago, is the market is not as reactive to certain news. Quite the opposite with respect to oil. Certainly beginning with the opinions that were abound with respect to OPEC decreasing production over the Thanksgiving holiday. They didn't do that. We've discussed that many times, and its impact on the falling oil prices, the impact on countries, Russia, OPEC countries, non-OPEC countries, individual companies, oil names. Those are what we're really hearing now. And in addition to that, what's the impact on funds that have perhaps were long oil futures, perhaps were or are still long oil futures, or long the oil names, whether it's larger names or smaller names, and that's we see the impact on that. We're starting to see that over the last several days. I wanted to get into some of the more technical, more fundamental information that's coming through this morning. We had a plethora of data that came through this morning. U.S. retail sales advance for the month of November, month over month, at 0.7% versus the expected 0.4. The previous was 0.3. Initial jobless claims for December 6th, week over week, was 294,000. Slightly less than expected of 297,000. Previous was 297,000. Continuing claims week over week, 2.514 million versus the expected 2.344, so a bit higher on that. On the continuing claims, previous was 2.362, so again a bit higher on the continuing claims. U.S. import price index month over month for November was lower by 1.5%. The expected of 1.8, a negative 1.8%, so a bit of an improvement on the import price index. Keep in mind that effect of the strong U.S. dollar. Additionally, retail sales, ex-auto and gas, climb 0.6%, and that's it was 0.5%. Estimated. Now remember, if you factor in retail sales with gas, remember gas has been falling with in conjunction with oil. So again, we'll see how those numbers. Perhaps if we see December numbers, we'll see a little bit more of an impact on perhaps the prices specifically. Also, U.S. Mortgage Bankers Association, November mortgage applications for new home buyers fell 22% versus the October number. So again, down 22% on mortgage applications for new home buyers. A couple of one interesting thing that came out this morning, U.S. Treasury Secretary Lew says lower oil prices have net positive effect on economy. Folks, we've been mentioning this several times. The fact that yes, the oil price has an effect on individual countries and economies and specific stocks with respect to revenue, but the reality is when you're having a lower gas prices, it is a undeniable boon, a lift to the discretionary income of the consumer. So that is absolutely key there as we watch this oil come down. So this is what he's not even alluding to. This is pretty explicit. Lower oil prices have net positive effect on the economy. A few other things that we're looking for this morning: the Bloomberg Consumer Comfort Index at 9:45 in the morning, EIA natural gas report at 10:30, 3, 6-month, and 5-year Treasury inflation protected securities auction results at 11. 30-year bond auction results at 1, and of course every week we get the Fed balance sheet and money supply at 4:30. In overnight markets in Asia, we have Nikkei lower by 0.89%, Hang Seng lower by 0.9%, Shanghai lower by 0.49%. If you recall, Shanghai had a rather impressive volatility within the last several days. So interesting to continue monitoring the Shanghai index there. In Europe, we have the FTSE lower by now is down 0.65%. CAC in Paris is lower by 0.28%. DAX is higher by 0.35%, and DAX in Germany, IBEX in Spain is lower by 0.05%. So a little bit of an improvement, slight improvement versus about the last half hour or so in Europe. What we'd like to do now is get into the technicals of what we're seeing, and we'll bring this up on let's see, right there. So you have the technical verbiage there. We'll just fix that up briefly. Milt, I know it seems as though volatility has creeped in. We were talking yesterday evening after the markets. It feels like we went from almost an $18,000 in the Dow. We have almost a close to 500 point correction. Well, not a correction. Let's not call it a correction, but certainly a very quiet sell-off. What's your thought on that? What are you thinking for this morning?
Well, this morning you're gonna have everything predicated off of what was going on in Europe yesterday, and it's continuing today. Greece is down again at about another 4 or 5%. European markets are usually mostly down across the board. U.S. markets are up about between 8 to 9 handles this morning, and it seems like they're brushing everything aside. It's been an interesting morning, and we're going to see in regards to we had some positive retail sales numbers, and we're going to see how that relates to the markets today. Currently, we're up. Oil is again. It's like a record being played over and over again. Oil is again down, trading at 60.37, down about 57 cents this morning. Gold is also down this morning, about $11, $12. It's going to be interesting to see the feel and feedback of what goes on during trading day today. Next week we have the Fed, so people are going to start talking about that as well. It's going to be it's going to be an interesting end of the week. Moving into next week, right now, the U.S. markets are currently pushing aside what's going on overseas and focusing on the continuation of trying to, buying the dips and continuing to move higher. We'll see how the reaction is today, and we'll see what happens going into the close, which is key. We'll just jump real quick on these technicals. We've had the ES. We'll jump on first. The ES, we've been mentioning how the initial support level on the ES was about 20.35. It broke that yesterday, hit a low of about 20.23. This morning we are currently at that level. That level now becomes a small resistance to the upside. So the 20.35 number, plus or minus, we all know how that goes, is now that resistance number on the upside. Ideally, we're looking at that 2015 number now as support. If that is broken, we can go straight down to 2000. So we have the 2015 support number on the ES. The 2035 is that short-term resistance. Ideally, you got that 2050 number as the ideal number, and then that the previous highs of about 2075, 2079. So those are the numbers we're watching on the ES. The volume, interestingly, was much higher yesterday. It seems like the volume increases every time the market gets hit. Why? I don't know. Maybe because people just want to get out. I really have no answer to that. But as you can see, when the markets are trending on the downside or closing the red, typically the volume is more severe. I'll jump on the volatility, VIX. Every day for the past 2-3 weeks, we've mentioned the number to watch is that 16 number. If that number is broken, you can see a significant upside to the VIX. 16 was broken again yesterday. closed at 1853, about $2 plus higher than that 16 number we've been mentioning. It hit a high yesterday of about 1892. So right now, that 16 number resistance that we've been talking about now becomes support. Watching the 16 level as support, if that level is broken, it'll go back into that 12 to 14 range and possibly continue throughout the rest of the year. But right now, $16 support on the VIX. 18 was broken. You are at the highest level resistance right now on the VIX. A break to 20 and higher could see a huge volatility spike. Watching those levels, watching that number. Right now, I'll mention again, 16 support. 12 to 14 is the ideal support range that's been going on for how long right now. So watching those levels, watching that information, and keeping an eye on the continuation move to the upside or the breakdown on the downside. Jumping on, did I do oil, George? I didn't do oil.
Not yet.
Let's jumping on oil.
Crude, yeah.
Oil right now, you have that support 60 number, and I think they're going to try and hold that as much as they possibly can. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with oil at that 60 number. Is it going to break out? They're going to break into the 50s. I don't know. Who knows? If I did, I wouldn't be, doing what I'm doing. I'd be a filthy millionaire, But it's a situation right now where who really knows exactly what oil is going to do? Right now, it's trading right at that 60 number. If it breaks it, can we see 50s? Possibly. At that point, can something happen to someone to step in and be like, you know what, this is enough? Who knows? But right now, 60 number we're watching. We've got the upside resistance at 62. It seems like the resistance number is dropping every other day. We went from 70 to 68, 65, 64. Now we're back to 62. Watching those levels, watching that number, and keeping an eye on this volume. If we see a washout, we want to see a capitulation bottom in this oil. Hasn't done it yet. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll figure out what happens next. Lastly, gold. Gold right now is at 1218.90, down $10 pre-market. The 1200 is the support level. It's going to try to base around here and try to hit that high of the 1250. Watching if it breaks the 1200 number. If not, it could base here a little bit and try to retest those 1250 resistance levels. We're watching and keeping a close eye on it. It seems to be, it came in from the previous highs. It seems to consolidate a little bit. Let's see if it consolidates around this level, and then we'll take it a step higher. Right now, we're watching gold at the 1200 number, 1250 to the upside. Want to see a volume break on either side, and then we see a continuation move. George?
Thank you, Mel. So, folks, one of the key takeaways that you get from this, Milton mentioned at the very beginning of the tech analysis portion that Europe is down outside of the DAX, Greece is down considerably, but yet the U.S. markets are at least pointing to a positive open. S&P futures higher by 7.00 to 2033.75, and it's this concept of internalizing news. We've brought this up several times, and that is how can a particular headline, can a particular concern stay the course and have an impact on particular markets. We saw, for example, 2 days ago, if I'm not mistaken, we had the all of a sudden everyone was concerned about Greece, and everyone was concerned about the elections and so forth. It seems to be, how quickly do the market participants internalize that particular event or potential event and quantify it? What's the potential impact on the markets, plug it into their algos, and continue positioning their portfolios, positioning their trading with that information in. So that's something that I think is very key to mention, because we sometimes see this continued news, this continued concern of a particular, maybe it's a geopolitical event, maybe it's a macroeconomic type event, and we eventually see an internalization by the markets on what may be the scenario planning, what may happen, what are the various directions that this particular situation can go, whether it's geopolitical, for example, with Greece, what can happen, what are the ramifications, what's the implied losses or implied volatility. So that's something that always comes into play, and that sometimes we have a change in sentiment in response to particular news. So again, we want to keep an eye on that. If we see maybe a deterioration of the futures, perhaps we haven't internalized the Greek concern, various other macroeconomic concerns, but that's something to really keep an eye on. Let's run through the commodities, energy and raw materials. Again, we have oil lower by 32 cents at $60.62 USD. The distillates, we have gasoline at 1.6403, lower by 0.0014. And again, on the gasoline end, it is having an impact on the consumer. It's more money in the consumer's pocket. It's pure discretionary income, folks. If you're at the pump and you're paying $4, $4.25 a few months ago, and all of a sudden you're paying $2.75 now, it's a big impact on the wallet, folks, and that's something that Secretary of Treasury Liu was explicitly stating that. So again, very interesting to keep an eye on that. So moving on, natural gas at 3.705, lower by 0.001. Heating oil higher this morning by 0.0243 at 2.0711. Gold, as we said, lower this morning by $11.10 at 1,218.3. Silver lower by 15 cents at $17.03. Platinum lower by $7.60 at $1,235 even. Cocoa lower by 43 cents $43 at $28.90. Excuse me. Cocoa lower by $43 at $28.90. A check on the 5-year, we're at 1.589, slightly lower yield on the 5-year. 10-year, we're at 2.185, and the 30-year, we're at 2.843. And when we're taking a look at the yield curve for the 2, 5, 10, and 30, the belly of the curve, the 2 and the 5-year, are still higher than they were certainly a year ago. We do see the current yield, as we've seen, even compared to a month, the 10 and the 30-year lower than we were about a month ago. The 5-year seems to maybe get into a little bit of a range there, but again, slightly flatter curve than compared to a year ago when we go out from it, starting from the 12-month out through the 30-year. So that's something that would really like to concentrate on over the next several days to weeks to see if we get any indication from a higher rate conversation from the Fed, and also certainly waiting on Draghi and the ECB in Europe, so certainly that has an effect. Also the dollar at 88.540, higher by 0.261. The euro at 1.2410. Wanted to bring up Also, the effect of gasoline and oil, certainly on airline stocks, it certainly has an effect on countries, smaller countries, larger countries that rely on it for revenues. Also, travel industries, um, travel on airplanes, cars. So again, it all has an impact. It has a pure economic impact from this low oil. So what we'd like to do is jump into specific securities that are making news this morning. News circulating from Apple Insider. Apple Watch mass production rumored to start in January. Apple, we can take a look at typically in pre-market. So right now we have it at 112.47, $112.47. SPLS, we have higher in pre-market. Starboard extends bet on office supply sector with 6% staple stake, higher in pre-market, clearly at $16.26. We want to bring up something we've brought up this. You'll see in the main chat room option plays. We pick out option plays that we feel that are important. We pick out option plays that perhaps may have an impact on the security, both on the shorter term and the longer term. We've been mentioning in the main chat room that SPLS, there's been an increase call buying, call versus put buying. Calls typically are buying a call, you're bullish on the security. Increase in call buying in SPLS recently, and certainly we see this. Starboard extends bet on office supply sector with a 6% staple stake. So again, occasionally you'll get we'll put something in with respect to an option call. It may not be that immediate, but again, it does have an impact on the particular, may have a particular impact on the security, perhaps not in the short term, but over the longer term. This specifically SPLS. On Google, Britain lays out detail for proposed 25% Google tax, according to the Wall Street Journal. Also, Lululemon moving in pre-market. CEO talking about a robust holiday sales. Lulu this morning, Lululemon higher this morning at $50.05. Did make a low this morning at $44.19. So a rather volatile pre-market this morning. We are just now seeing some volumes starting to come in. Again, we're about 4 minutes away from the open in New York. NES, Nuvera Environmental Solutions. We had a 10% owner purchase, 18,000 shares at $6.43. We don't have anything yet this morning in terms of indicator on Nuvera, but should we see something within the next few minutes, we'll definitely let you know. So we have a plethora of insider insider purchases, but let's do syndicates first, and we'll pick out some of the larger insider transactions. Also, just coming through the wire here. Let's see here. We have founder of MOMO implicated in theft, graft, and indigency. Baba is a major shareholder in the upcoming IPO. Okay, so that's we'll keep an eye on that. Also, YOD to launch on Southern Media Corporate's 3G TV mobile platform. That's on YOD. You on demand. Currently indicating this morning at $2.26. You on demand to launch on Southern Media Corporation's 3G TV mobile platform. So also taking a look at CNX. CNX we have currently in pre-market at $35.35. Consol Energy will pursue formation of MLP, approved $250 million buyback. So that's Consol Energy. And again, what we're starting to see, and you'll see this in the um, insider transactions, insider purchases, is we began to see this with HK the other day. We saw a little bit more yesterday. A few more of the insiders purchasing these smaller energy names. They have been, absolutely decimated, and I don't use that term loosely. They've just been destroyed as of late, and so it's good to see insiders, whether it's a CEO or CFO or directors, really, putting some skin in the game with respect to their companies, and that's we like to see that. We like to see that. Cooperation from the insiders, especially when the stock has been beaten down. So again, interesting there. So let's go over the syndicates now. ARMK, Aramark, lower this morning at $28.56 to sell. They're selling 25 million shares to holders. Again, this does have an effect on securities with respect to just being a dilutive effect. We do have markets are open in the U.S. 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. So we'll continue to monitor the markets as we see what effect this news has on particular securities. So let's continue. BFAM. BFAM. We have selling 8 million shares to holders at $45.69. That's what it is now. So BURL currently at $44.12. Again, they are also selling 8 million shares to holders. This is Burlington Stores, currently higher by about 0.5%. HDS selling 40.66 million shares to holders. HDS lower this morning by 1.5% at $27.79. MEI Pharma to sell $45 million worth of shares of common stock, currently at $55.17, lower by 4% this morning. MFRM, Mattress Firm Holdings, currently at $61.07, lower by more than 2% this morning, to sell 2 million shares to holders. NLSN, Hilton, currently at $42.65, lower by about 2.5% this morning. So we have, let's run through some of the insider purchases, some of the larger insider purchases, and then we'll again. So we have S&P futures higher by 10 now, which is the high of the morning actually. So we'll keep an eye on that as we keep in mind those technical levels that Milton mentioned. NEOT. Not much coming out of yet in NEOT. CGIX, same. We'll pick out. You have the information there. If you're interested in these particular securities, the recommendation is just to watch these securities, put them in a perhaps a mock portfolio where you can just monitor these particular shares. What effect do these purchases have on the securities over time? LGCY Legacy Reserves, CO purchases 19,000 shares, and again in a director purchase 19,000 shares at 1640. LGCY stock is currently Not seeing anything yet in pre-market in early trading yet, but yesterday it was at $13, low of $13.20. So again, we'll see if that just seeing some activity this morning. Let's see. Taking a look at AEIS, Energy, currently indicating $22.06. Not seeing much volatility out of that yet. WIW, Western Asset, let's see, Income Fund Cascade, 10% owner purchase, 5,500 shares. 55,000 shares at $11.39. Again, not seeing much activity yet. WPX, WPX Energy currently at $10.92, higher by 1.74%. We do see President CEO purchasing 10,000 shares at $11.41. Continuing on, a bit of purchasing out of CO, which is China Cord Blood. Currently not seeing much yet in early trading, but again, we have quite a bit of purchasing there in CO, China Cord Blood. CIO, City Office REITs, we're seeing some activity earlier on, lower by 0.3%. CFO purchasing 6,900 shares, and also director purchasing 30,000 shares. A couple of purchases out of PIH, Property Insurance Holdings, currently indicating at $7.40. Again, not much activity yet, so we'll continue that. CRC, California Resources, initial, we have a little bit of volume coming through the stock, currently at $5.58 this morning. We have the chairman purchasing 20,000 shares. We have PRGX, PRGX Global, a little bit of really not much volatility coming out of that. WAI, we talked about that. AVHI, AV Homes, we have CEO purchasing 10,000 shares. Really no volume in that yet. TRVN, Trevena, TRVN, let's see, 10% owner purchasing 500,000 shares, and a director purchasing 50,000 shares at $4, and other numerous small buyers as well. We're not seeing much yet out of the stock yet, but again, we'll definitely keep that on your radar. Interesting purchases out of there. OHAI, not much coming out of that either. We'll get a few more. SGEN, which is Seattle Genetics. We have 10% owner purchasing 1.2 million shares at $33.82. Stock is higher by 5.5%, currently at $36.20. So again, certainly making an inflection on that based on that SGEN director, 10% owner purchasing 1.2 million shares. Currently, stock is higher by about 5.5%. SUNS, Solar Senior Capital, Michael Gross, let's see, purchasing 30,000 shares. Not much activity yet out of that, and currently down about 20%. LXRX, Lexicon Pharmaceuticals, director purchasing 300,000 shares, currently at 90 cents, up 1.21% in early trading. PSEC, we have higher by 0.6%. Prospect Capital, currently at $8.20. Let's see, and okay, so good. Again, at $8.20. So what we'd like to do is let's take a quick check in where we are on the markets. We have the futures higher at the high of the day, currently at higher by 14.5 points at 2040.5, up about 0.7%. So we went through some of those again perhaps temporary resistance levels, and again, watching that. Want to monitor this particular oil trade lower by 34 cents at $60.63. Gold lower by $11 at $1,218 and 50 cents. Silver also lower as well by 16 cents at $17.02. Okay, a couple of more news that's just coming through here. HLF, Herbalife, purging out against the company, so we're getting some perhaps some negative news on Herbalife this morning. Herbalife currently at $40.40 in early trading. So, folks, that's our show for this evening, for this morning, excuse me. Thank you for joining us on Unusual Activity, powered by FinancialJuice.com.